So I'm interviewing Phil Saunders. Hello, Phil.
Joseph, how are you?
Good. You are in Israel, and I'd like to ask you some questions relating to your Israeli Jewish experience in light of what's going on or has been going on in Israel-Palestine in the last many years.
Sure.
You came to Israel, as I recall, in 2005. Okay, from London.
Yes.
Okay, and what was the reason that you moved from London to Israel?
There were many reasons. One of them is that I had married an Israeli girl, and I'd always dreamed of living in the sunshine, and so it was worth giving it a try. And we moved to Tel Aviv in 2005, and I loved it. And it's an amazing country to live in. Many fascinating people to talk to, many experiences which are a world away from living in London. And yeah, after 8 years in Tel Aviv, I felt ready to leave the Tel Aviv bubble and experience something more among the actual problems of this land. And so we moved right next to the Green Line. So I now live in Sur Hadassah.
What's the name of the town?
Sur Hadassah
Did you live in?
is a town of maybe 15,000 Israelis now, just west of the Green Line. So it's not a settlement, but immediately east of us, just at the bottom of the hill, maybe 500 meters away, is a small Palestinian village named Wadi Buki. And so that's already in the West Bank. And then on the other side of that is, on the next hill, a large Israeli settlement that is the city of Beitar Illit. And that is around maybe 80,000 ultra-Orthodox Jews.
Okay, so are you saying you do not live in the West Bank? You live in
Correct.
what is called the gray zone? Or?
I do not live in the West Bank, but I am as close to it as you could possibly get without actually living in it.
I see. So if it wasn't for that girl that you met, would you have moved to Israel?
I don't know. It's a great question. Okay, that's what worked out, and it's been nearly 20 years now, and it's been very fulfilling, despite challenges.
Were you a Zionist at the time?
Honestly, that wasn't one of the central principles guiding me. I was a Jew in northwest London, and I principally thought in Western terms, and Israel to me was something I didn't understand. I felt it was a foreign country, which I'd visited a few times, and it was fascinating to visit. But then, yeah, it was even more fascinating to come and live here. And it's really been eye-opening in many ways.
Okay, but are you now a Zionist, or did you ever become a Zionist, or was the idea of a Jewish state in your mind, or was it just a beautiful woman that you met with the sunshine?
Okay, honestly, I don't totally know how to even view the word Zionist. If Zionism means the right for Jews to live in their ancient homeland, then I'm all for it. If, on the other hand, it means the right of Jews to oppress other people in this land, I'm not for it. And so there are things done in the name of Zionism that I do not agree with. Some people tell me that's not true Zionism, and we need to reclaim Zionism in the way it was supposed to be. Others tell me, no. Zionism is fundamentally corrupted. So I choose not to even go for such labels. For me, it's all about living in this land among everyone else who lives in this land and finding a way to not only coexist, but actually even thrive together.
Okay. Did you suffer anti-Semitism in London?
No. Honestly, I don't remember ever suffering anti-Semitism. I do not wear a kippah, so I wasn't immediately noticeable as a Jew. My name, Phil Saunders, doesn't mark me out as Jewish, so no.
But were you among non-Jews who made some derogatory comments about Jews when you
I
were
said,
living in London?
I certainly remember some lively debates with non-Jews, but that's fine. I was perfectly happy to engage in such debates. Uh, Honestly, I never particularly stood with one side and therefore took offence at anything that might. I felt that there were many sides to this story, and I still do.
I see. So, did you ever join the IDF?
No, no. I came here at 35. They wouldn't have been interested in me at that age, I don't think.
So you had to join the IDF?
No, not at all. Moving
Not at all. Oh,
moving at
okay.
the age of 35, I think they would have viewed me as too old to train. So no, I have never been part of the Israeli army.
I see. Okay. Um, so, what do you do in Israel?
Well, these days I am basically full-time active in peace building and trying to chart a way out of this horrific mess that we're in, for the sake of all of us.
I see. And how long have you been doing that? Active in peace building?
Since coming to this area. When I lived in Tel Aviv, I was active with some peace organizations, for example, Combatants for Peace. I was part of the Tel Aviv Tulkarim group, although I had never been a combatant. But nevertheless, I was interested in getting to know Palestinians. So yeah, I also was part of a project called Visit Palestine, which enabled me to go to Area A cities such as Bethlehem and Jericho with a approval from the Israeli Kogat. They give approvals for such things. So again, I wanted to get to know Palestinians, but until I actually moved here and lived right next to them, I did not truly get to know them. And so I moved here just nearly 11 years now, and it's been hugely uh, an experience that changed my perspectives, getting to know the Palestinians and what they truly need, and also the Israelis in both my town and in Beitar Elite, and getting to understand what's important to all these different kinds of people changed my mindset. So yes, since moving here, I've been much more actively involved in leading a kind of new paradigm.
In geographically speaking,
Mhm.
your town is near what big city that we're all familiar with?
Sure, okay. We are halfway between Jerusalem and Bet Shemesh. So Bet Shemesh is southwest of Jerusalem, and we're halfway down along the road connecting the two.
Okay. So you are east of Bet Shemesh and west of Jerusalem.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. So what changes did you see after you moved to the area where you are as a result of your engagement with the Palestinians?
Okay. So one of the first things I remember is them being very happy that I was coming to meet them and talk to them and want to get to know them. But whenever I talked about the two-state solution, they said, please, Phil, don't talk about the two-state solution because the last thing we want is a separation between us and you guys. And I said, well, but isn't that what all the peace efforts have been trying to do to give you statehood? And they said, well, that's not what we need in this area. We depend on you guys for our livelihoods, and principally their economic interdependency is with the city of Beitar Elite. Beitar Elite is full of ultra-Orthodox Jews who have large families and don't have that much money. They need to be able to buy things cheaply. And where's the best place to buy things cheaply? In a neighboring Palestinian town. And so directly opposite Beitar Elite, on the other side of the main road, is a town of maybe 10,000 Palestinians now, named Husan. And for many years, there has been an economic interdependency that has served the interests of both communities. And when I arrived, they were excited that I might be able to bring people from Suadasa to start buying things in their town as well. And I checked with my neighbours, And they said, well, but we don't live in the West Bank, and we're not going to go to a Palestinian town in the West Bank unless it's guaranteed to be safe. And I reported this back to them, and they said, okay, if that's the thing holding it back, then we'll do something about it. And they did. And it's an amazing transformation that happened in the last 10 years. It has proceeded. And basically, in 2017, after a couple of years of serious work together, we managed to bring all hostilities in this area to an end. And that enabled the relations to thrive, because the minute that there wasn't any violence happening from either side, then suddenly relations can boom, and they did.
That's wonderful. Do you have like a vision for what would be, based on that experience, of what would be the best way to make peace in general between the Palestinians and the Israelis?
Yeah, here's what I've learned. First of all, economics can be a wonderful catalyst for positive relations, but it's not enough. If you just have economics and you don't also build security and create a secure environment, then those economic relations will be very fragile. And I view what happened to Hawara in the north of the West Bank as a sad example of what can happen if you have economic relations. The Israelis were driving along Road 60 and stopping to get their cars washed and drinking coffee while they waited. And unfortunately, there was no security. And so some bad actors decided to take advantage of easy pickings. And that's very important, not to lay yourselves open to being exploited and to relations being wrecked by outsiders. And so I believe economics and security have to go together, hand in hand. And it needs to be not just economics and security. You have to actually get to know each other as well. But it starts with basic human needs. What I learned in this area is Palestinians principally wanted quality of life and dignity in their homes, and so the ability to have a decent job, paying them a decent living so that they could put food on their tables for their families, is what they were looking for. And the Israelis, by comparison, wanted security, wanted to be able to drive to work in Jerusalem, past those Palestinian towns, without worrying that somebody was going to throw rocks at them or whatever. And so these are basic human needs that you need to meet first. But it doesn't just stop at basic human needs. You then have to build proper understanding of each other. And so, yeah, given that we now have excellent relations, then we have all sorts of projects to get to know each other. And that includes the women and the kids now, because the economics and security was principally between the men in this area at first. But you need to get everyone involved. So that's one thing I've learned. The other thing I've learned is that we have a very interesting triangular dynamic here. Tzur Adasa is a modern Israeli town, half secular Jews and half religious Zionists, whereas Beitar Illit is an ultra-Orthodox traditional city with very different values. If you look at the symbolism in the two communities, you'll see big Israeli flags, patriotism for the Israeli state in Tzur Hadassah. But in Beitar Illit, you never see that. You see only symbolism of Judaism. And meanwhile, Husan represents the third vertex of that triangle. They are a traditional Muslim town who can relate to Beitar Illit on an interfaith level, because those two are both religious communities, and they have a language that they can totally understand. Also, they very much are dependent economically on each other, whereas Tzur Hadassah and Husan connect on a more cultural level. I love going to Husan to eat makluba, for example, but the ultra-Orthodox wouldn't be able to do that unless it's made fully kosher, which we have done on occasion here, so it can be done. But nevertheless, the cultural relations are strongest between Suradasa and Busan, and also we will talk about political subjects, which really wouldn't be the conversation between Beitar Elite and Busan. So what I'm saying is that we connect at different levels, and in some ways, Busan is almost like a bridge between Suradasa and Beitar Elite, two different Israeli communities that don't understand each other at all. And Busan can connect to both. And so one wonderful experience happened at the end of 2022 after the Soccer World Cup. What happened is many of the ultra-Orthodox wanted to watch the games, and they didn't have big screens to watch it, or it wasn't the done thing to be. So there was a Palestinian restaurant. It's named Beit Aboded, the Lonely House, right at the center of this triangle of communities, and they have big screens. So the ultra-Orthodox were coming in and watching the games, and as the competition progressed, it became absolutely packed with ultra-Orthodox, and we were there as well, people from Suradasa, and the Palestinians were there, and so we were all together as a result of this competition, and afterwards, a couple of young pioneering Haredim decided, let's set up something, they called it Cholent Tashich. They served cholent with a kosher certificate in this Palestinian, you can call it a restaurant. It was more about nargila, smoking the pipe, and we were all there, and many interesting conversations were having. And so it's very interesting when you have three totally different communities, because then you don't get stuck into a tug of war, one against the other. You actually have different competing forces that in some way balance each other out. And so what this led me to conclude is that we should cherish diversity. The more diverse identities you have, the more things balance out. There are different things that we can each give to each other. And that led me and others I work with to conclude that some kind of federal arrangement, which has different areas for different kinds of people, might be the best solution. Rather than separating away from each other, or even thinking of it as just two peoples, there are many different kinds of Israelis and many different kinds of Palestinians. And so, there's room in this land for each of us to have our own identity and interact with each other positively.
So the impression I got is that the Orthodox Jews got along better with the Palestinians than the secular Jews with the Palestinians.
Well, I would say it's in a different way. Okay, certainly the economic relations are strongest between Kusan and Beitar Elite, because Suradasa, we may well buy things elsewhere, okay, whereas they are very close and very much intertwined. But that's only one kind of relationship. It may be that on an interpersonal level, people in Suradasa are closer.
What about equality? You didn't mention equality. I asked you about what would be your vision for peace. You did not mention equality. Do you feel that Palestinians and Israelis should be equal?
Yes.
In their politically and in all aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I see it, we have two peoples that love the same land, and if we cut it up, neither people will get what they want. Palestinians care about Haifa and Jaffa, and Israelis care about Hebron, for example. So if we don't want to cut the land up, then we need to find a way of sharing it. And yes, that should be done with equal rights, civil rights for everyone. Absolutely. But the way to do it is the question. Because if we decide not to separate, which is becoming, as far as I'm concerned, every year that goes by, it becomes more and more impossible to separate us. There are more Israelis living in the West Bank with each year, and the cost of having to remove all sorts of people from their homes and the damage to economic relations, which are win-win, it's not a price worth paying when we all love the same land, but that does not mean we should merge. We are two peoples. We do not want to try to merge into one people. We have enough problems in our Knesset as it is, without really having two peoples, roughly half and half, in that parliament trying to make decisions. So much better is that we share certain things, for example, the economy, the environment, but maintain other things separately so that we can retain our identities. So yes, I would very much want it to be equal for
It
everyone.
sounds it sounds to me that you would be in favor of a one state with one government for the people of Israel and Palestine as equal under a one government with a constitution that guarantees equality to everyone in the land of Israel Palestine. Am I correct?
Okay, so in principle, I would be very happy to live in such a future situation here, which would guarantee equality and democracy for everybody. However, I have seen that the majority of Israelis, so Israeli Jews, let's be more specific, would be very afraid of such a future, certainly in the short term. Uh, they have waited a long time to be self-determining, and they fear merging in, even politically, with anybody else. Therefore, I imagine personally that I think there could be something between a confederation and a federation which enables the things that we need to retain separately. For example, perhaps even two parliaments. Okay, one for the Israelis, one for the Palestinians. Okay, but other things that we want to keep together. As I said, the economy, the environment. I think security should be something we have to do together. I've seen how that works well when we cooperate. However, for example, supposing in this one state future there were only one representative at the United Nations, we would be arguing, who's it going to be? Is it going to be a Jew or a Palestinian? And I think at the moment we already have both peoples have representatives at the United Nations. It may not be equal, however, because of course Israel is a member state and Palestine is a non-member state.
What difference does it make if it's a Jew or a Palestinian? Why would you be arguing about that? What difference
Because
does it make? If it's a one country with one government,
yeah,
then both the Jew and the Palestinian will have the interest of that government, wouldn't it not?
well, that is assuming that we can all trust each other to represent each other. And I'm saying at this point in time, that isn't the case, especially after October the 7th, even more so. The level of trust between Jews and Palestinians has taken a massive hit. And so the ability for us to merge politically is something that has been set back. But that does not mean we should separate.
I need to ask you a question. Are you saying that a democracy is based on trust?
Maybe it isn't. Okay, however, what I'm saying is if Jews and Palestinians don't trust each other, then it's difficult to come together in one political institution. I'm not saying it shouldn't
Do
ever happen.
Israelis trust each other?
No,
Wait.
you're
Do
right.
Israelis
You're
trust each
absolutely
other?
right. Absolutely. And that's why I said there are many different.
I'm asking you a question. I'm not making a
Oh,
statement. I'm
sorry.
asking you,
Yeah.
do Israelis trust each other?
No, no. Before this war happened, there was a kind of civil war happening between very different opinions of Israeli Jews as to what the future of this state should be. They do not trust each other at all. And the political infighting is horrendous. So no.
So why are you bringing the element of trust when it comes to Israelis and Palestinians in the same government?
I'm simply saying,
Why is trust an element in a democracy?
well,
What
if
the element in a democracy is transparency.
yes,
It's a constitution working
yes,
under the same rules, the same
yes,
ground rules.
yes,
Where Israel does not have a constitution.
correct.
So would you be in favor of having a constitution
Yes,
for the people of Israel and Palestine together?
absolutely.
Okay.
But I'm
All
not.
right.
I'm saying
So
that's not enough. I think it's very important that we finally have a constitution and clear guiding principles of things we're not allowed to do, that no one is allowed to do to each other in this land, etc., etc. But in order to get people to want to sign up to it, there's going to need to be some work done. And therefore, I have a view. Okay, I'm the chairman of a conflict transformation organization named Challenge. And the idea of conflict transformation is that it's in between conflict resolution and conflict management. Conflict resolution believes it's possible to. Hang on. Can you still hear me? Great. Okay.
yeah.
Conflict resolution believes that it's possible to resolve the conflict completely, sit down, get the leaders to sit down, hammer out a deal, and then everything gets sorted out. I would love that if that could happen. However, we seem to be still a distance from that. Conflict management at the other end of the spectrum believes, no, it's not possible to fix any of the problems, but let's just manage the conflict, contain it a bit, make a few things better. Now, in between is conflict transformation that believes that even while you're still in conflict, it is possible to create seismic change in the dynamics. And that is what we've done in this area. We've changed from a situation of hostile and violent relations into relations that are win-win and symbiotic. And that proves it's possible.
Yeah, but you did not create equality.
Correct. You are absolutely
You
right.
did not create equality.
You are absolutely right. And some people would say it's just normalization of the status quo. We would disagree. We would say it is.
Let me ask you.
Sure.
Do you see the Israeli government as the solution or the problem?
Okay. I am no fan of the current Israeli government. Okay. They have not been very popular.
Okay, I'm not speaking about the current Israeli government. I'm speaking about the governments of Israel ever since the creation of the state of Israel. Let me be more precise. Do you see the idea of a Jewish state in general as the problem or as the solution?
Okay. So I believe that some politicians have been better than others. I agree with you that our leaders collectively, the Israeli leaders and the Palestinian leaders, have failed to deliver peace, and that is because there are many systemic.
I'm not speaking about the leaders. I'm speaking about the ideology.
Yeah. So if you're talking about the ideology, no, I do not agree with you on that. Okay, because I believe
you do not. I didn't say what I.
No,
I'm
asking
you. I'm asking you. Do you believe that a Jewish state, a Zionist state, is the problem, or is it the solution?
Yeah. So I receive your emails, and I know that you wanted to put a placard in Tel Aviv saying the Jewish state is bad for Jews. I don't agree with that. And the reason.
Do you agree? Do you agree with that? Do you agree that a Jewish state is bad for Jews?
No. And here's the reason why. I certainly agree that the way we've gone about it has been very bad. However, what I'm saying is, for most Jews that live in this land, certainly, they feel the need to live in what they would call a Jewish state. Now, we all have to discuss, what does a Jewish state mean? Because as I said earlier, Zionism means different things for different people.
You could discuss it forever,
yes,
Phil. But the Palestinians, for them, a Jewish state means that they are excluded from that state. So you were speaking about various ways to make peace and ways that you say work in your area, but you still support a Jewish state which excludes Palestinians.
I do not support any exclusion. However, for example, let's consider the a land for all model. That is a confederation model, and that is creating an Israeli state and a Palestinian state with open borders and the ability for Palestinians to live in the Israeli state and Israelis to live in the Palestinian state.
I'm sorry, Land for All proposed 1967
Correct.
border.
They do. That is right. The two states would be divided by the 1967 borders. But what I'm saying is,
Correct.
for Jews that feel the need for the existence of a Jewish state, a land for all can produce that for them. Now, I'm not saying that a land for all is necessarily the model that I'm looking for. I'm a floating federalist, and I've already said I believe that there are some elements of a federation model that would suit better than a confederation. But what I'm saying is,
Phil, I apologize, but I have to get to the point
sure,
rather than speaking about land for all.
okay,
I want to talk about whether
Mhm.
and why a Jewish state is good for the Jews. In fact, it has been involved in constant
yes,
wars
it has,
since
yes,
1948,
yes,
since the declaration of the State of Israel,
yes,
with thousands of Jews being killed
yep,
in wars, and it does not have a vision for the future and does not have a constitution
yep,
and no ability to create a constitution.
correct,
It is imposing an apartheid on the Palestinians,
yes,
imposing occupation.
yes.
What's wrong with trying to see whether that concept is actually good for the Jews?
It's
And that's what I'm asking you.
it's a legitimate question to ask, absolutely. And I'm saying I agree with
And the
all
answer
of the
is
things that have happened, which have been bad for everybody. However, I am not assuming that having separate Jewish self-governance and separate Palestinian self-governance is the problem. Okay, you're saying if we merge and don't have a Jewish state, we just create one state where your model is a confederation bringing together all Israelis and Palestinians in a government
no,
system.
no, no. Phil, you participated in many of our simulations.
Yep.
I never spoke about merging of governments. I spoke of a federal, independent government
Yeah, that's
that
what I mean.
would be separate from the Israeli and the
Correct.
Palestinian governments. And if you want to ask me why I think that's a better model, I will explain to you. But
Mhm.
I want to know, why are you not able to say outright
Mhm.
that a Jewish state is bad for Jews, despite the fact that you've seen with your own eyes constant wars
Yes.
and constant
Yes.
fighting and constant killing and bombing of a Jewish state with no vision in the future?
Yep. All of that is true. Okay. We're not necessarily agreeing
I know it's true.
on.
I'm asking, why
With,
are you not able to clearly state
Mhm.
why is a Jewish state good for Jews under the circumstances that it has proven to be
Well, under under the my
bad for Jews?
under my experience in this area, what I'm saying is I believe that, for example, the ultra Orthodox Jews should be able to have self determination in their areas, self governance in their areas. If you don't want to call that Jewish state, that's fine. Let's just call it local Jewish self governance and religious Jewish self governance. Okay, that's what they want, and the civil war that was happening before this war broke out was effectively some of those Jews asserting their need for that. In the same way, Tel Aviv are secular Jews principally, and they assert the need to live in a secular Jewish self-governing entity. And the Palestinians want to be self-governing in their areas, and there are more than one kind of Palestinian. Therefore, what I'm effectively saying is, okay, so let's be clear. Let's agree to. I'm not saying there has to be a Jewish state, a Palestinian state. What I am standing for is that people get to feel independent and experience not only equality, human rights, and whatever, but actual self-governance with people of their own kind, because that's what people in this land want at this time. One day, I
But
dream.
you also support a Jewish state. You think a Jewish state is good for Jews.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that. Okay, I'm simply opening up the discussion and saying I do not think, based on what I've experienced here, that we should all merge. Okay, I think what you're proposing is a wonderful addition to the existing situation. I agree with you totally that the Israeli and Palestinian governments have failed to deliver to their peoples the needs of their peoples, and therefore the creation of a new body that would combine Israelis and Palestinians together to make decisions together would be an excellent way forward, okay, to break the deadlock. And so I'm all for that. However, I think it's come up in your simulations that people have said, but hang on, okay, right, are you against the two-state solution or something? And you said, where in our constitution is it against the? You haven't necessarily preordained what kind of final status agreement there will be. You are creating a new governance platform, which I think is a wonderful innovation, and I'm all for it. But yes, at some point, we all will need to decide and lead our way out of this status quo, which is horrific and getting worse as time goes on, okay, and actually try something new. Exactly as you say at the end of your emails, you need to think out of the box, whatever it is. Buckminster Fuller is the quote, right? So absolutely, it is time to do new things.
Phil, our organization does not propose any substantive issue,
yes,
any substantive policy. It proposes a system of government,
yes,
and to have the parliament member in that system of government decide substantive issues.
Absolutely.
Now, what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Does it have to be Joseph who decide those substantive issues?
No, there is nothing wrong with that at all. I love it. I hope it will happen. However, what I'm saying is, at the same time, I'm working with people who are thinking ahead of what the right kind of final status agreement might be, which we also believe is something that we would call a federation or a confederation or some kind of hybrid between the two. So what's interesting is we and you are using similar language. What you call your system a confederation. We call it also a confederation or federation. We've created a project called the Federal Forum, where we've gathered together many people who've been working on these ideas for years, sometimes decades.
Do you have a constitution?
We do not. No, because
do you have a constitution?
No, and I'll tell you why. At this point in time, we are simply gathering together the ideas, the kinds of contributions that we could bring to a future which would be harmonious, and that we would all be able to share this land and all get what we need. And so at this point in time, we do not need to build one particular model. Okay, there are models out there. A land for all is a confederation model, but there is the federation movement that is a cantonal model, and there is the Abrahamic movement, which is based on the symbolism.
Any of them have a constitution?
Yes. Individually, some of them absolutely have done so, and they have done great detailed work. And so this is all wonderful stuff.
Which one of these organizations have a constitution?
From what I remember, certainly Eretz Art, which was set up by Rafi Gassel, who I believe you've known for years. He has a detailed constitution and detailed structure of the bicameral system, etc. Others have also got constitutions written, but what I'm
I'll
saying
have to
is,
look at it because I have not seen that constitution.
So we have many.
The constitution.
For me, it is not a requirement for them to have a constitution or even a clearly detailed plan yet. What matters at this point in time is that we all bring ideas to the table that can be constructive and that we all start working together. And so I would love at this point if the Federal Forum and you and anybody else who is working on some kind of federal innovative approach to this land's problems, that we should all start working together. And one of the key things I want to happen is that the people who believe in a confederation and the people who believe in a federation will start working together, because there have been many arguments about that. Some people say these are fundamentally different things, because in a federation, sovereignty is at the top, at the federal level, whereas in a confederation, the sovereignty is down below the constituent states. For us, it's not important to argue about that.
Did you?
Yes, I have done in the past.
And did you see anything that you find objectionable or opposed to or needs to be amended or changed
No,
in that
no. And
constitution?
the crucial thing is, as you said, this is
So
not
why
a final
go
status.
backwards
Hmm?
and why not go forward? Why are you not joining the IPC totally and saying this is a good constitution? I don't see anything wrong with it, like you just told me.
Yep.
I don't see anything that needs to be changed,
Yep.
and just support it rather than going back and rethink the issues that we have thought about years ago.
Yeah, sure.
Why is it that you would not just flat out support and say, yes, this is what I propose, this is what I support?
Okay. So, in answer to that question, I am a floating federalist that believes federalism is the way to break out of the stalemate and work constructively and build a future where we can coexist in this land. But I am not picking any particular plan and specifically planting my flag on one plan. What I want to happen is that we'll all start engaging in fruitful conversations together. If you're saying, you want my support, absolutely. When I've been at the simulations, I support it. However, I'm not just
Well,
going to be part of
isn't
the
that
IP.
really the problem, to say I support this and I support that and I support everything without really stating what is your exclusive support?
Yes, sure.
And because you're diluting the solution. And
No.
to be frank with you, I felt that you are diluting the solution, and I am questioning,
Yep.
why would you not be overwhelmingly about a federal government or confederation government that we are proposing and support it hands on, rather than saying, well, I am for a discussion. The
My role,
discussion at one point has to be over.
yeah, and I am not I do not want to pick any particular model. I love all of them, and I want to bring them all together so that we can work together. So I'm not rejecting
Yeah.
any. I'm
In my
gathering.
opinion, that's the problem. That's not a sincere, honest. Maybe it is sincere
It
on
is
your behalf.
honest.
I don't want to
It may not
question
be
your
what you want.
sincerity. I am saying it's not a practical way to say, well, I love all of them. Let's talk about it.
Why?
At one point
Why not?
in our life, we have to make a
No,
decision.
not yet. Not yet. And I've had conversations with ambassadors about what we're doing, and they have said, do not try to come to us with a finished plan, every I dotted, every T crossed. We all need to work that out together. Okay. And so, okay, it's
You spoke with ambassadors?
sure. And that is their advice.
Well, aren't they the problem? They represent the government. Why would you go to an ambassador who represents a government and tell them, what do you think about creating a federal government that will be separate and apart from your government, and give us your opinion? And now you're using their opinion as your explanation of why you're not supporting a federal government.
Okay. And the answer is, we believe in working with as many people as possible. And that includes talking to everyone, including the governments. Okay, because if we do not engage with them positively, first of all, they are likely to be spoilers to what we're trying to do because they have been left out of it. Secondly, there is always the possibility when you talk to somebody who disagrees and is leading a different policy, you can then open their minds to it. Okay, so absolutely, we will talk to everyone. And the answer that we've had back is, do not try to work it all out and present it as a fait accompli. We are going to need to work on all of this together. Therefore, the more you have, okay, that you can bring to the table, and this is exactly what I said in this area. The fact that there are many different communities with different needs and different capabilities actually just widens the possibilities. There's so much more room to maneuver when you bring all these different ideas together. So I do not want to be zooming in. I can tell you that early on, I remember one federalist who said, let's have a beauty contest and see, and may the best plan win. And we said, no, it's not about that yet. We're just gathering all of the ideas. Okay, and we have to get it out there.
How long have you been gathering all these?
Okay, so the Federal Forum project began at the end of 2020. So, okay, nearly been 4 years.
2003?
2020.
2020.
Yeah, not that
Okay.
long. And we have now, after we gathered enough together and started, instead of viewing each other as rivals, that we saw each other as people that we can work with and share ideas and cross-pollinate, and then we created.
And when would you be able to clearly have an idea of what it is that you support, or do you intend to talk forever?
Excellent question. So we have just in the last few months created a set of agreed conjoint principles, and that is now our federal paradigm. So it is agreeing key principles of what a federal future would look like, including equality and democracy and all those things that are so important. Okay, and now we can go out there to the world, to whoever, and present them with a paradigm of a different way of engaging. So no, we do not want to be talking forever. And by the way, here in this area, we didn't just talk about changing the dynamics, we did it. Okay, so it's a proof of concept. But let's be clear, it's not federalism already.
Yeah. And what is your concept of what would be the relationship between the federalism government that you're proposing and the Israeli and the Palestinian governments?
Okay. In your model, you create something where there's going to be, in addition to the existing Israeli and Palestinian governments, a new government that Israelis and Palestinians are part of together. Ours will not necessarily be like that. Okay, we may well, I think most of our models are imagining a future where Israeli and Palestinian governments are working far more fruitfully together in some kind of federal arrangement. Okay, so we're trying to embrace all of it.
So in your model, the Israeli and the Palestinian government will create a federal government?
Yes, we would like to see a federal governance structure. Different people have different views. Okay, in a confederation structure, that's likely to be two separate governments. In some of the federation models, it's entirely one government. Okay, but that you can still have regional independence, whatever. So there are many ways to try to work this out.
But the federal government that you are proposing will be created by the Israeli and the Palestinian government as a mutual project.
Well, absolutely. We believe in engaging positively with everyone. We believe it's in everybody's interest to do so. So yes, we would not be trying to set it up in rivalry to existing institutions. We would try to bring them in. However, that is a process. We may well need international support to be able to do that and exert the correct influences. It's a process. It won't happen overnight.
Okay, so you mentioned the failed Israeli government and the failed Palestinian government, and now you want those two failed governments to create a federal government together. Is that your?
I wouldn't quite use the word failed governments in that way. I think they have failed
I think
to
you use
deliver.
them. You use them.
I don't remember exactly how I worded it, but what I remember trying to say is that they have failed. You correctly state they have failed to serve the interests of their people. I don't think it would be correct to call Israel a failed state, for example. In many ways, it is still very functioning, and the government is very strong. Some would say too strong. So,
So, in your opinion, Israel is not a failed state because it is functioning. It has good economy, good military.
For example, but there are many other things that I would say have failed totally.
Would you say that the failure to protect the Jews as it was intended to be created as a Jewish state, would you say that it failed to protect the Jews?
Yes, I would say at this point in time, given everything we're suffering, I think the Jewish people and the Palestinian people both are paying a very high price for the lack of vision of our politicians and the endless wars that have been perpetrated, and there is culpability in so many different directions, including, by the way.
And you want those people with the lack of vision, the people who failed to protect the Jews and the Palestinians, you want them to create a federal government. That's your vision.
I do not have the power to sweep them away. Okay, I do have the power to have conversations.
I understand. I'm not asking if you have the power. You think that those governments will be creating a federal government?
Let me answer this way. I believe people
just answer
have
yes or no. I mean, why need to?
And the Israeli government, for example, attempts to serve the needs of their constituent factions who support them, because we do have democracy in Israel and they need to be elected periodically. And so they have to pander to factions that will support them. So what I'm saying, let me be very clear. I do not believe.
Look, we're running out of time.
Sure.
We're running out of time. Did you say that Israel is a democracy?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so in a democracy, are the people that are under the government, should they have the right to vote?
Yes. Okay, let's be clear. Okay, it's a democracy.
So would you say that the Palestinians? Wait. Would you say that the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza that live under Israeli laws, under Israeli government, do they have the right to vote?
No.
And if not,
they do not.
Would that change your mind about Israel being a democracy?
No, because a democracy means that there are periodic democratic elections and people are democratically elected. A liberal democracy, as I understand it, grants far more freedoms and rights and protection of minorities. In the original democracy in ancient Greece, as I understand it, that was the creation of democracy. Only the rich men actually got to vote. Okay, the women were excluded and the slaves were excluded.
About Israel-Palestine. Would you say that, Phil, we're running out of time. I'm speaking about Israel-Palestine.
Yes.
I'm not speaking about Greece or America.
Okay.
In your opinion, since Israel does not allow the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, whom it controls, who have to obey Israeli law, in your opinion, without giving them the right to vote, does that make Israel a democracy?
And I already answered. I say it is a democracy, but it is a deficient democracy, which clearly some people are not allowed to be part of. Okay. Therefore, absolutely, things need to be changed.
But would you agree that in a democracy, the people vote for the government, but in Israel, it's the government that votes for the people?
I didn't really understand.
Because it does not allow the Palestinians to vote. So it chooses who will be the people who will elect the government.
Correct.
Rather than in a democracy where the people
criteria. And we need to change it. I believe in a joint future, and I do want equality for everyone in this land. Clearly, that is not the case at the moment. We need to work together to change the reality, to bring a future which will be equal and democratic for the sake of all generations to come. And I would like that to happen as soon as possible. And I believe in order to do that, we're all going to have to start working together. So what I'm saying is, let's begin properly working together. You are doing wonderful work, and you're amazing, by the way, at what you do. And the way you bring all sorts of people to attend the simulations, you are putting out the word of a different way of doing things in a wonderful way. And we have people who are also doing wonderful work, which is incredibly complementary. So let's start working together. That's what I want to, and that's what I said to you when we met up not that long ago in Jerusalem. We could do so much.
Yeah, you did say that. The problem, I feel, that your definition is working together is going backwards. And my definition of working together is moving forward.
I don't know.
And
We'll
you
have to
say,
we'll have
well,
to
let's
discuss
just
that.
rethink and retalk. We already did the talking. We did the talking. Now
Well,
it's time to
then
do
we need to talk more
the act.
until we reach a way that we can work together. I'm sure you're right. There are some things we disagree about at the moment, and that's absolutely fine. Okay, it may mean that you have certain things that you need to bring to the discussion, and that I have certain. And when we get to understand each who we're kind of representing or which kind of needs, then we will form something together which will really serve the needs and build something sustainable for the future. So yeah, let's do that.
All right. We've been here for an hour. I enjoyed the conversation,
Me too.
Phil. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And hope to see you again.
Absolutely. I
Bye-bye.
very much hope so. Let's work together soon.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Phil.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Joseph. Bye bye.